What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pentagon Challenge. In yesterday's video, we completed stage 3 with Club Necaxa in Mexico, and today we had our attention firmly set on a job in South America. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the Copa Liberatores, it is usually dominated by two nations, Brazil and Argentina. I wanted my job to be in one of those two countries, but after leaving Mexico, there were a few little teething problems. A couple of jobs didn't appear. So let's get into today's video to find out, one, where we land, and two, if we can win that Copa Libertadores. The first one that I like the look of was the racing club job in Argentina, but they appointed some guy called Lionel Messi to be their new manager. Then managers started to fall in Brazil, as both Grêmio and Atlético Mineiro both sacked their managers, so I applied for both roles. Now, at this stage, I do have to give a caveat that unfortunately, before I started the save, I did not apply the fix to actually address the Brazilian kits in this save. I'm sorry. I know it's going to offend people. I'm sorry. Both clubs then offered me an interview and even both offered me the jobs, but I had to pick Atlético Mineiro for a couple of reasons, so I signed on the dotted line to become their new manager. Reason number one is the fact that the club's best player is former Chelsea man Angelo, who has returned to Brazil after his Chelsea career did not take off. Imagine that, one of the youngsters that Chelsea actually signed in real life not getting the game time that he thought and returning back to his home country. And the second reason that I chose Atlético Mineiro was the fact that they're already in the Copa Libertadores this season. Before I took over, they came second in their group behind Flamengo, meaning we will take on Palmeiras in the second round knockout fixture. Palmeiras currently sit third in the Brazilian league, whilst we are down in 13th as I take over at the club. So I know this is a long shot, but anything can happen in football. We're bringing our successful tactic to the club, and this is how things look ahead of my first game at the club, with Angelo effectively making everyone else look bad from a star rating perspective. Our first game in charge was away to relegation-threatened Avi, so I was expecting a nice 3 points to kick off my time in Brazil. We scored a goal either side of halftime through Emerson and Angelo, so I thought it was on the cards, but then we fell apart. Avi scored 3 goals in the final 20 minutes to see us lose our first game in charge. That showed me the level of work that we do have to do, but I couldn't rest on my laurels because in 2 games' time, we had Palmeiras in the Copa Libertadores. And I knew it would always be difficult against a club like Palmeiras, but in the first leg at home, we took the lead through striker Daniel, but we ultimately lost the game 2-1 with Hernan Vega and Jose Roberto scoring late goals for Palmeiras. That result meant that we'd have to attack them on the road and gave a good account of ourselves, to be honest, but we did lose the game 1-0 on the night to exit the Copa Libertadores this season. So that meant it wasn't going to be a quick turnaround in Brazil, so that meant my attention had to solely focus on the league and achieving that Copa Libertadores qualification the next season. And after that cup exit, we were outstanding in the league, only dropping 9 points to skyrocket up the league. So much so that we went into the final game of the season third in the table, just 1 point behind Flamengo. And that final game of the year was away to Flamengo, meaning that if we beat them, we'd be crowned Brazilian champions. We had to travel to the Maracanã in Rio for the game, and I was instantly sucker punched as our former player at Club Necaxa, Riquelme Philippi, put Flamengo ahead inside the opening 5 minutes. But this team showed great character to score twice before halftime to go into the break top of the table. But then in the second half, Brazil's best team scored a second to see the game end in a draw and see them secure their 8th league title in 9 years. So we finished second in the table, which is a huge improvement from the 13th place that we were in when I took over. However, I do have to show you the goal that in my eyes cost me the title. It was away at Fluminense and my goalkeeper did this.
What is the goalkeeper doing? Why are you there?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that goal either. Given when the Brazilian league runs, we will have some January transfer window antics to enjoy as we get ready for our new season. We have £7 million in our transfer budget, and star player Angelo is wanted by several clubs across the world, and he has a £14 million minimum fee release clause. In the the off-season, we got very active in this window to really allow me to put my stamp on this squad, because we had several players in the team that I needed to get rid of to allow me to do that. This window saw both Daniel and Paulo Vitor join Chinese club Shanghai Port for a combined £27 million. And they were followed out the door by Damian Garcia, who joined Shabab Al Ali in the UAE for another £8 million. Want away wide man Angelo is currently still at the club after rejecting multiple contracts in Saudi Arabia, but Inter Milan have agreed to pay his £14 million release clause, so I expect him to leave in this window. One of our biggest signings in this window was striker Lina Silva, who was listed as a wonder kid and has been capped by Brazil at under 20 level, and he cost us an initial £12 million. In this window, I also raided the relegated teams from last season, as I signed winger Nardoni from our rivals Americo Mineiro for just 750k, and I also picked up 2 players from Santos, as I signed goalkeeper Mateus Costa and defensive midfielder Lucas Gabriel for a combined £8.5 million. However, these players are 3 of 6 waiting to join the club after the first game of the season. Other signings include former Palmeiras Nujen Adir, who joined Dutch side Herenveen 2 seasons ago, but we are bringing him back home to dominate our midfield, and Vélez utility man Alberto Bustamante. But this being Brazil, we have fixtures all over the place in several competitions, starting off with the Minas State Championship. We opened the season with a Minas State Championship where we won almost all of our games except from one to make it all the way to the State Championship final. This was to be held over 2 legs, and we secured a narrow 1-0 lead in the home leg thanks to Nardoni heading home from a corner against Cruzeiro. However, the game on the road was more tricky, with the opposition winning this game 2-1. So in the game, it actually played the animation with us lifting the trophy. However, there was a lot of confusion in the stream because we didn't win the title here. Cruzeiro did actually win the title by finishing higher than us in the league table on goal difference. So cheers for getting my hopes up, SI. Before our league campaign started, we also had the Brazilian Supercopa, where we would take on last year's champions Flamengo. Lin Silva gave us the lead on the day before half-time, but Flamengo were able to pull level just a few minutes into the second half. But then we took over the game with goals from Angelo and Lucas Gabriel. Flamengo did score again in the 94th minute, but we held on to be crowned Supercopa winners. And again, whilst this doesn't actually count towards the Pentagon challenge, this is actually a nice little confidence boost for me, knowing that we can actually beat the best team in Brazil over the last 9 years. However, this season, my attention was solely on the Copa Liberatores, and we were drawn in Group G alongside teams from Paraguay, Ecuador, and Colombia. But this was pretty straightforward, as we won 5 of the 6 games to top the group and move into the knockout portion of the competition later in the season. However, that wasn't until a lot later in the year, so my attention then focused on domestic matters, namely the league and the Brazilian Cup. And our start to the league was outstanding, going unbeaten for the first 3 months of the season to really show how much we'd improved in the off-season. Our first league defeat of the season came against Grêmio in July, but that was the game before our Copa Libertadores knockout fixtures, so I'm blaming the result, namely on fielding a fully rotated team. And just before our Copa Libertadores second round tie, we were handed a massive blow as star player Angelo finally agreed to leave the club, opting to join Manchester United for that £14 million minimum fee release clause. However, that didn't derail us too much, as we faced Everton de Vina del Mar from Chile and cruised into a 3-0 lead in the first leg away from home. Back in Brazil for the second leg, we showed our ruthless side as we hammered the team from Chile, running out 8-1 winners on the day to coast into the quarter-finals. July also saw us hit a personal milestone in the save, as we racked up 500 games in management, and we've now got a 5-star reputation along with a 77% win ratio, which for me, I don't think that's bad over a sample size of 500 games. The Copa Libertadores threw up an all-Brazilian tie for us in the quarter-final stage, where we would have to face Grêmio. And I find that a little bit poetic, as they were the other team that offered us a job as we arrived in Brazil. The first leg was away from home, and despite being the better team, we suffered a 1-0 defeat thanks to an 85th minute goal from Mario after a defensive mix-up on our side. In the home leg, we were able to pull the tie level through Lucas Gabriel, but we couldn't score again to see the tie end 1-1. Now, there is no extra time here, so the game went straight to penalties. Both sides score their opening penalties, but with our second, Emerson saw his saved, giving us a huge task to advance in this competition, with lots of pressure falling at the shoulders of our goalkeeper Costa. Following that, both teams were clinical from the spot until Gremio's last spot kick, where Costa came up clutch, saving well to his right-hand side. Jose Rafael thundered in our first sudden death penalty before Costa turned into Superman, denying Mario to send us into the semi-final. At this stage of the season, we were advancing in every single cup competition whilst playing superbly in the league. So much so that we even made it to the Brazilian Cup final after naming a rotated 11 in every single fixture to that point. Here we had to face Flamengo over 2 legs, but I have to admit, this trophy wasn't really one that I cared about winning. We shared a 1-1 draw in the leg at home before losing 4-2 at the Maracanã to see Flamengo lift the trophy, but as AFTV's Robbie would say, we have much bigger fish to fry.
Bigger fish to fry!
We moved into October as we would have to face Argentinian giants Boca Juniors in the Copa Liberatores semi-final. The first leg was in Argentina and Lin Silva gave us the lead inside the first 60 seconds before Luca Langioni equalised for Boca. But then in the second half, Antonio Mamede headed us back in front from a corner before Emerson made it 3-1, directing a Mamede shot into the back of the goal. Back in Brazil for the second leg, things were much more comfortable as we scored 2 goals in each half without reply to win 4-0 on the day and 7-1 on aggregate to book our place in the Copa Libertadores final for the first time. And 2 league matches later, we managed to secure the Serie A title with 4 games to spare after a 3-0 win away at Bragantino. And that meant that we could rotate the team as much as possible to make sure everyone was fit and healthy going into that Copa Libertadores final later in the year. And we definitely need it as we have to face the final boss in the Copa Libertadores final, Flamengo. This time the game was played at a neutral venue in Bolivia, so I thought I stood half a chance here and took the lead in the 25th minute as Simon Renteria cut in from the right hand side before lashing the ball into the back of the net. But less than 5 minutes later, Flamengo were level as we missed several opportunities to tackle Lucas, who scored a lovely solo goal to make it 1-1. And then in the second half, disaster struck. As we were trying to play out from the back, one careless back pass allowed Lucas a golden opportunity to put Flamengo into the lead, and he didn't miss, giving us 15 minutes to save our season. I completely ripped the tactic apart and threw the kitchen sink at Flamengo to get back into the game, and were rewarded in the 86th minute as Sandri's deep cross was headed home at the far post by Nardoni. And then I was getting prepped for a penalty shootout for all the marbles, and this happened. There were 5 minutes injury time. It's happened. Oh my god. Oh my god, the pass back. It's happened. 1 each. '93rd minute. Monteza. And that goal was enough to see us lift the Copa Libertadores and complete the 4th part of this remarkable story. So that means we are 4 down with 1 to go as we head to Europe to complete the end of our journey. It's going to be an interesting one because there are interesting jobs available. I don't know which country I'm going to land in. England, Spain, Italy, Germany, France. Maybe outside of those. Who knows at the moment. If you guys hit the like target for today's video, again, I'm going to keep it at 500 likes. If you hit 500 likes, tomorrow we will drop the final part of this series. We're going to get a job in Europe. We're going to try and win the Champions League. And hopefully we can bring an end to this journey. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.